We're back.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Bucs Planet podcast. And the Bucs are back, baby. We're back. I mean, how about us? 4-game winning streak. I mean, we're a 500 ball club now. And who would have thought, at a record of 2-6 at one point, that now we're 7-7. I wouldn't have. I would have said, you're an idiot. We're not doing that. And I'm the biggest Bucs fanatic on the planet. I'm always overly optimistic. And I wouldn't have even said we'd be 7-7 at this point in the season with 2 games to go. And we're going to get into all of it. Actually, we're probably not going to get into all of it because there's too much, because I missed so much time, and that's what I'm going to get into right now. I'm sorry that I have not made a podcast in a month, okay? I've had multiple issues. Like, not really. Basically, this is what happened. I got lazy for 1 week, and that kind of screwed us because I had surgery on my nose a couple weeks ago. I have a deviated septum, and I got the surgery to fix it, and I was basically out for 2 weeks. This is just a little bit over my second week of recovering. I'm still not fully 100% back yet, but we're getting there. And so that set me back, really. I couldn't make a podcast because I was really not fully recovered. I didn't feel like making one as I was still recovering from my surgery. And it just looks like a long time because I really could have made one the next week after we played the Saints. I didn't make one, and then I had the surgery, and then it just went downhill from there. And Thanksgiving and stuff was also a distraction and stuff that I had to do. So, yeah, those were the issues there. But I will make videos. I'm always going to be here. I'm going to take care of you guys, okay? You will get your Tampa Bay Buccaneers content from this YouTube channel all the time. I will take care of you guys. And now let's get into what the heck happened since we last spoke. Last time we spoke, the Bucs won and beat the Cardinals, and we cut Vernon Hargreaves. That's the last time that we spoke. And I just want to say that, do you think it's a correlation that you cut Hargreaves, and we are 4-1 since we cut Hargreaves? 4-1. Some people are like, oh no, Will, that's not correlated. That's just one player. It's not correlated. Oh, I think it is correlated. You have Hargreaves on your ball club, you lose football games. You have Hargreaves not on your ball club, you win football games. That's what you do. And it's a fact. He sucks. And guess what? We're playing the Texans this week, and guess what team picked him up? The Texans. So Vernon Hargreaves is coming back to Tampa this week. It'll be his homecoming. And guess who's going? I'm going. And we playing on Saturday, and I'm all fired up. I'm fired up to see Hargreaves, and I wanted him to get lit up by Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. But now, of course, they're injured, so we have our third stringers and random guys we just picked up off the streets going to be in there. And I bet you one thing, he'll probably still get burnt. Jameis Winston will I just hope he exposes him. Hargreaves. But we'll talk about the real success. Our defense has played very, very well since our winning streak started. It all started after we lost to the Saints. So we beat the Cardinals, lose to the Saints, and then it was like, oh gosh. But then we go to Atlanta, and our defense looked like the defense from 2003 that had Hall of Famers on every single level of the defense. I have no idea what happened between the Saints game and the Falcons game, but our corners, and you know me in the corners, I don't get along well with our corners. Our corners usually suck. But our corners, and take in mind too, the Falcons have one of the best wide receiving core in the league. They have Julio Jones, the best wide receiver in the National Football League, on their team. They have Calvin Ridley as his complement, who's easily a top 15, top 20 receiver in the league. They have it's just those two alone rip us to shreds. Mostly Julio. Julio has numbers against us you wouldn't even believe. But our corners went out there and we shut them down. I mean, we locked up Julio and Calvin Ridley. And I'd never seen us play like that. I was like, what are we doing? I've never seen us play this good defense since ever, really. And I was so impressed. And the offense looked good. Jameis played good. And then after that, we go to the Jaguars. And we just absolutely obliterate the Jacksonville Jaguars. The score of 28-11 doesn't even show how much of a blowout it was, even though we already beat them. It already says we beat them by almost 20 points. And we honestly should have beat them by more. I mean, at halftime, we were up by, I think, 24 points. 25 points. It was 25-0. 25-0 at halftime, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We harassed Nick Foles, their quarterback. Our defense again played lights out. Devin White had a touchdown. He had an interception. He's a beast. He outplayed Josh Allen and who was the better pick game. I mean, obviously that doesn't say who's the better pick yet because it's too early, but that's what I like to call it. And we just looked fantastic. Are the Jaguars a good football team? No. Are the Falcons a good football team? No. But still, we still beat them. Because we're not a good football team either at this point. Because you're thinking, well, because now it's easy to say, oh, the Jaguars aren't good, the Falcons aren't good, and you beat them, congratulations. Okay, well, at the time you're playing these games, all those teams are saying, well, the Bucs aren't good. So I think it evens it out. And we blew out the Jaguars, and they put in their backup quarterback, Gardner Minshew, couldn't do anything. He had one good drive. We figured him out. He looked horrible. And we finished out and we blew out the Jaguars. We only scored 3 points after halftime. I find that concerning, and that was because of Leftwich's play calls, which we'll get into later. Then we come home. And this was one of the first home games that I've ever missed. And I think ever since I've had season tickets the last 5 years, because I had my surgery 2 days before and I was unable to go. But of course, you know me, I was watching it on my TV at home. And Jameis Winston had 3 picks, but 4 touchdowns and a rushing, so 5 total touchdowns, and over 450 passing yards. And I can tell you, the start of the game was just, it seems like a typical start, where we go out there, we have a turnover, first drive, Jameis pick. Very next play, Jacoby Brissett airs it out, our defenders look lost, 50-yard touchdown. Then on our next drive, Adaria Agumba idiot, fumbles the football after Jameis Winston completes it to him. And then they get the ball back. And then they kick a field goal. Now it's 10-0, and there's been about 3 minutes of game time ticked off the clock. And then I'm sitting at my couch saying, thank freaking goodness I did not attend this game. Because this is horrible. But you have to give Jameis some credit. He is the best at bouncing back. Like, he'll just go out there, throw a bunch of picks, and he still goes out and puts together some good drives. He really does. And he had 3 picks, and they were all his fault. And one of them was a pick 6. But he's so weird. Like, he had 5 total touchdowns. 450 plus passing yards. But then it's like, oh, the 3 picks. It's irritating. Because you don't know what to do with them. But I have to give him credit. He clawed his way back. He put us in a hole, kind of. Not all of it was his fault, because some of it was, the fumble and a couple the defense choking. But he came back. He led us to a comeback drive. I'm impressed. Overall, I would say I'm impressed. And the Colts are supposed to be going to the playoffs at this point. So we kind of came in there and played spoilers. And we beat them. So this is a decent quality win you got here. Of course, now you're going to be like, well, they just lost to the Saints like 30-0 on Monday Night Football. Yeah, I understand. Okay, this was before all that happened. Then we go out and play the Lions, who are on their third-string quarterback, and it was kind of expected at this point we blow them out, because now it's like, wow, these Buccaneers are winning football games. And we go out and we blow out the Lions. Our defense had 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, a fumble recovery, and a pick 6, baby. One of those 2 interceptions was a pick 6. We got in the end zone. Sean Murphy Bunting, the rookie, got in there. I was impressed. I love it. I loved that game. They kind of came back. We almost blew it. It's a typical Bucs game. It can't be too easy. Even in the Jaguars game, they semi looked like they were going to come back, but then we stepped on their throats and the game ended. So, what next? The Bucs have been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs because the Vikings keep winning games and they're taking up the last wild card spot. It's irritating, I know. If we finish 9-7 and you don't make the playoffs, that is irritating because 9-7 gets you in at least half the time. So it's irritating to watch. And we were 9-7 a couple years ago, and we didn't get in either because of a tiebreaker. And that's it's irritating. But that is what it is. We can't make up for how we played in the beginning of the season, except if Matt Gay made that freaking field goal that was like 30 yards against the Giants, and if the refs didn't screw us when they called Devin White's fumble return touchdown against the Titans down by contact, if those two things that's just bad luck, really. Especially the bad call that cost us the game. If you win even if you just win one of those two games, I think we go to the playoffs. Especially if you win both of those games, we'd go to the playoffs. But shoulda, woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? So it is what it is. We played pretty bad at the beginning of the season, so it's not like we really deserve it, but we are playing good now, and I do think that if they put us in the playoffs, we would win a game. I really think we'd win a game. So yeah. Next week, and by next week, I mean in 2 days from when I'm going to post this, we play the Houston Texans, who have a record of 9-5. They are playoff bound. The Texans are playoff bound. If we beat the Texans, we win our 5th game in a row. That we are good at that point. But we have multiple issues going into this week, and that's what I want to talk about. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller, our main starting 3, are all injured because of a hamstring injury. And I don't know if we just have really crappy trainers or what. I don't know. But the fact that all 3 of them got injured from a hamstring injury, and they're probably not going to play the rest of the season. Scotty Miller might play, but he's obviously not as good as Godwin or Evans because Evans is put on the IR. He's done for the season, but it's like, oh, well, we have Godwin, who's basically a number 1 wide receiver. Well, he's gone too, and they think he'll be gone for the rest of the season. He's for sure not playing this week. I don't know if he doesn't play this week. I don't know why he'd play him next week and for the last game of the season. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, picked up 3 wide receivers that have never played in the NFL before. 3 wide receivers for the Bucs are going to make their NFL debut. Spencer Schnell, Cody McElroy, and Cyril Grayson, I think. And they have never even played in an NFL game. But yet they're playing on Sunday. And I just don't think, honestly, that we'd be able to beat the Texans with those receivers. If we have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, we would beat the Texans, in my opinion. We would have beat the Texans. But it's so hard. Now they're saying that O.J. Howard is going to be starting at wide receiver 3, which I think that's a good thing. Because right now our wide receiver 1 is Brashad Perriman, who's played better the last couple weeks, so give him credit. But a wide receiver 1 with his size, And we're going to have Watson in there at 2. Howard needs to be in there somewhere. We need some height. Because even if Scotty Miller does come back, he's short as heck too. So we need OJ in there. And I mean, you know what? You've never heard of these people I named, and yet they're going to be starting. So Jameis has some issues headed his way this week. He always has the bad offensive line every single week. That's just a guaranteed. We have a bad offensive line. And now he's not even going to have really any weapons this game. And I don't really know what to say. Could we win? Yeah, but it'd be kind of a miracle if you want me to be honest here. Even with our winning streak and everybody's, talking about us now. But when you have the top 2 receivers, and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, when they got hurt, they were second. Chris Godwin was second in receiving yards in the entire NFL, and Mike Evans was third. So you basically have two of the top 5 receivers in the entire NFL on your team, and now they're both injured. I mean, that screws you offensively because everybody knows we can't run the ball. That's something that I want to talk about too. It's a little bit of a negative side of all the things that have happened. That have happened. The run game has been absolutely atrocious, and I know a lot of it is because of our offensive line. A lot of it is. But I've read and I've heard and I listened on the radio, and they think that the main problem, besides the offensive line, is the design of the run plays. We have very predictable, designed run plays. The whole world knows when we're running the ball, and that's why it doesn't go anywhere. Leftwich is a guy who likes to bring extra tight ends and linemen on running plays and kind of stack the box instead of more of like a college RPO style where you kind of line up like with 4 wide receivers, a tight end. Well, I guess just, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a running back, and you kind of spread everything out, put less people in the box, and then you run the ball that way. It's less predictable. There's less people in the box, but there is less people blocking. But there's less people to block because they're more spread out. So I think we need to be running a more spread, more, the type of offense Barry Sanders was in. It was more spread out when you would run the ball. Because I think Rojo, he got benched in the Jaguars game because he couldn't pick up a pass protection. I'm not sure if Ronald Jones is the long-term solution at running back. I would not have a problem if the Bucs picked a running back in the later rounds of this draft, the mid to later rounds. Like if we could pick like J.K. Dobbins or something in like the 3rd round, or Cam Akers or something, I would be perfectly okay with that. Because I'm not a full believer in Rojo, but I do think he needs more time and he needs a better offensive line, just like Jameis Winston. And speaking of Jameis Winston. The debate of the century. Should we bring back Jameis Winston in 2020? My answer is absolutely 100% yes. Barring another 4 to 5 interception game. As of right now, you bring him back. He set a record last week when we beat the Lions. He passed for 450 yards again and 4 touchdowns again and just had 1 pick. Jameis Winston is the only player in NFL history to have back-to-back 450-plus yard passing games. Only player to ever do it. And I know we see all these comparisons to him and Peyton Manning and Brett Favre. It's kind of unfair, honestly, to compare him to Peyton Manning or Brett Favre. But to an extent, it's semi-true. If we drafted Brett Favre, think about the team Brett Favre was on, the Packers. Think how loaded they were. The Colts. Peyton Manning he had basically no success. They went 3-13 his rookie season, and they slowly got better. Because the difference between Jameis Winston and Brett Favre and Peyton Manning is that Brett Favre and Peyton Manning already were having success at this point in their careers. They were already going to the playoffs. They were already winning playoff games. They were already consistently going to playoff games and winning them. Jameis Winston has not even played in a playoff game. And I do not think that it is completely his fault. In fact, I mostly think it's not his fault. Some of it is his fault. Everyone contributes when you're on a losing team. Everybody contributes. Except maybe like the punter or something, right? But everybody contributes in some way. And Jameis think about what this man's had to deal with. He's in a dysfunctional organization that has a joke of a general manager that cannot draft talent to put around him. Oh, well, Will, you just said that 2 of the top 5 receivers in the league are on the Bucs. Yeah, that doesn't matter if you don't have time to throw the ball. And that doesn't matter if all the other teams are doing is expecting pass because you can't run the ball. There's no balance. all we do is have an air raid. And the second our passing game, because Jameis Winston has the toughest task in the NFL. No other quarterback in the league is put on as much pressure as Jameis is for this team. He gets no running help at all. It is 100% on the passing game. 100%. I saw a stat where Jameis Winston makes up 96.7% of the Bucs' total offensive yards. The most in the NFL. Do you know how much MVP frontrunner Lamar Jackson makes up of his offense? 62%. Do you think that difference matters? Because it does. Jameis Winston is put on so much pressure for the whole offense because not only does he have no running game, he also has a significantly below average, arguably the worst offensive line in the league. So he doesn't even really have time to pass the ball around and pick defenses apart. He usually has to run around or he forces it, makes a dumb decision. You know, it is what it is. But Jameis has never had a good team around him. And he's also had consistently the worst defense in the NFL every year of his career. Has it started to play better the last 6 games? Yes. And what is our record in the last 6 games? 5-1. That's interesting. Jameis plays good, he plays bad, but we always lose. We always lose, whether he plays good or bad. That was one thing that I talk about in my podcast. He'll have a great game and we lose. He has a bad game, we lose, and we blame it on him. Great game, we still lose. But then, ever since the defense started playing better, we won every ball. We've won mostly every ball game. It's funny how that works. How everyone's blaming Jameis Winston because we're not winning, but the second the defense starts playing better, we win every game. So, how about that? I just think he has stupid decision makings. I understand. He leads the NFL in interceptions. Okay, it's not good, but he also leads the league in passing yards, and he's second in touchdowns. So it's hard to say. And the completion percentage thing, everyone's like, oh, well, he's ranked 12th in completion percentage. That is hard to judge because he has some of the most, how do I say this? I think he has like the second most pass attempts in the whole league. Meaning, we throw the ball 45, 55 times a game, every game. So if you really think about it, if you throw the ball that much, your completion percentage is not going to be as good as like quarterbacks like Dak Prescott and some of these other guys that only throw the ball like on average 20 times per game, or a Jared Goff, right? So there's a difference. And a good example of why I think Jameis Winston can be a good quarterback. Jared Goff was a really good quarterback last year, but he had one of the best running backs in the league, Todd Gurley, as his running back. Jameis Winston has never had the luxury of something like that. And Todd Gurley had arthritis in his knee, and he had a lot of issues in the beginning of the season. And Todd Gurley wasn't his same self. He even got benched in some cases. So the Rams couldn't run the ball at all. And now Jared Goff was put in a similar situation as Winston. Below average offensive line, no running game, and Jared Goff struggled. He couldn't complete anything. He didn't really do anything. Jameis Winston does this every single game. So when Jared Goff never had a single good game when Todd Gurley was in his funk. Jameis Winston will have good games sometimes, most of the time, right? Lately, it's been most of the time. And he does it with no help on a running game. There's no balance. There's no pass protection. It's horrible. And with all the penalties we get and the below-average defense, it's really hard to judge him. Even in the 5th year, it's really hard. I think out of bare minimum, do I want to sign him to a long-term contract? I'm not there yet. I'm not. But I do believe that he needs to be back next year, whether he signs the franchise tag or we give the franchise tag to Shaq Barrett and then we just sign Jameis to a 1-year deal that's essentially a franchise tag. I don't care. We just got to do it. I think he's better than any option that we could have. Who are we going to go out and get? Phillip Rivers? Teddy Bridgewater? Oh, some of you idiots are like, oh, well, Tom Brady. No. And he's declining, so no. Jameis Winston is our best option at quarterback next year. So in my opinion, we need to keep him, again, barring another really horrendous, like London type of performance game. So I covered most of the things I wanted to talk about in this podcast. I'll probably make another one soon just to kind of, because there was so much that needed to be talked about. So I'm looking forward to this Saturday for Hargreaves' homecoming. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. And I will see you guys next time. Go Bucs, baby. We're back.